things happen, you know, at weddings, and sometimes they're easily recoverable things, and then sometimes it just makes the whole day just go down the toilet. It seems like it's all bad, and people say, oh, well, maybe this was an omen, you know, maybe this is a sign, I shouldn't be marrying this person, and then you have the runaway bride stories and, you know, all kinds of things. That doesn't usually happen at funerals because nobody's running anywhere. But I do have to tell you, all jokes aside, all the energies that I've spoken to from the higher side of life over the years, I can honestly say maybe one time I've had spirit say, I didn't like my service, or, oh, you know. I did have one lady one time say, I hated that dress that they put me in. Yeah, like they even specified, you know, I want to be buried in this dress. And then her daughters came along and said, oh, Mom would look great in this. And Mom was not happy. She said, I told them I wanted to be buried in that dress, and they're at their services, obviously. They're usually front row and center, and have comments to make sometimes about who's there, who wasn't there, etc. But it happens, it happens. So even though, you know, they're there for their celebration of life, which most of the time it is, there's not usually any sadness or sorrow on their part. They're just like, oh, nice, you know, or you did a great job, you know, and the things that people stood up and said about me, I was very touched. And then they find out later on as they're riding home in the car, they're listening to people's comments, and they're not always, you know, very nice. So I guess that's an advantage, though, obviously, of being in the spirit world. You're able to do that. But we're not going to go there. But it does happen. So celebrations of life, weddings, baptisms, spirit is there. Spirit is there. And it always, I mean, I have to keep my mouth shut most of the time when I'm at some of these events, because I'll hear people say, oh, it's too bad she didn't get to meet, you know, the new baby, or, you know, their future son-in-law or daughter-in-law, or whatever the case is. And, you know, it just makes me laugh, because I've learned over the years from these conversations with spirit that, honestly, a lot of times they held your baby before you did. You know, they'll say, I spent time with that energy, that child, before we sent it to you. So that is special to me, because it does happen. You know, they think that their family missed out on something, and believe me, they don't. They usually, you know, get to be there, just like the people that are sitting in the pews are visible, whatever. There's times that you feel their essence, you feel their presence, and we as spiritualists know that that is true. We know they're there, we sense them. Sometimes you can, you know, smell cologne, perfume, all kinds of things. Like, you know, I was with some friends this weekend shopping, and I think you remember, like, colognes, you know, perfumes that your loved ones, your parents, your dad wore a certain cologne, or your mom. And somebody brought me, because I like all the really retro kind of stuff that you don't find very easily anymore. And one of my friends brought me a bottle of perfume. And she's like, I don't know why, you know, I'm giving this to you. She said, but I found it in some of my aunt's things we were packing out, and they said to give it to you. And I was like, really? I was like, you know, I'm not like really big into perfume and cologne and all that kind of stuff. So she gave me this bottle, and it did. I was like, why are you giving me this old perfume? Like, I'm going to probably pour it down the toilet or something. But it was a perfume that my mother used to wear. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I almost was like, how did you know? Like, people say, oh, you gave me this? How did you know I like this? And it wasn't anything I liked, but it was one of my mother's standards. She didn't leave the house without wearing this perfume, and it was like, you know, very old, and this old bottle, and I thought, well, okay. I said, like they say, here's your sign. You know, you're looking for signs everywhere. Here's your sign. So I knew at that moment, you know, my mom was around and thinking of me, and she was just saying, you know, here I am, here's this perfume that I didn't know anybody else, of course, that wore that perfume, and it's not in existence, of course, anymore, back from the 60s or 50s or whatever. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, you know, that you found that in your elderly aunt's house, and she was like, they told her, give it to me, and I was like, wow. Those kind of things, they happen more than you realize. I've had people tell me they've gone into stores shopping, and all of a sudden a certain song comes on the radio, and you just know, and if you're a spiritualist, you just know, you trust. I've had other people say, oh, that's just a coincidence, you know, different songs come on all the time, and you know, every song is going to mean something to somebody, but I do have to tell you, this week, my brother-in-law passed away like 13 years ago. So I remember everybody, you know, was around my sister and trying to comfort people, of course, in their grief. They had been married, I think, about 25 years, something like that, and he passed away. So we were out shopping, me and my two sisters, and we were, you know, kind of, I think we were somewhere in the mall. I don't remember what store, like Dillard's or one of those stores, and you weren't expecting this, and all of a sudden they started playing old Rocky Top, you know, the Tennessee theme song, Volunteers, all that. Well, my brother-in-law was from Nashville, and he was like a die-hard Tennessee fan. And we heard old Rocky Top, like in Dillard's, and we're like, okay, who's playing with the radio there or something? But we just knew. I told my sister, see, like, did you really expect to hear that song today out in public? So she was like, she's still kind of skeptical, my sister, you know. She's just not a big fan. She doesn't trust. But I knew right away. I was like, you know, he's like poking you, going, hello, I'm right here. You know, what does it take? Like they say, you know, what does it take? The psychic hammer, remember the psychic hammer? Like, what does it take? Somebody to just, you know, hit you with the psychic hammer that you recognize this. So every day as we go along in our own little worlds and we think nobody's watching, nobody's listening, nobody's paying attention to us, even when you're in your car alone, you know, you're never alone. And we know that, and that's a blessing. That's a good thing, that we know we're never alone. I mean, I'm driving along. I really have grown past the stage where I care what people think of me. Oh, here she comes. Jeez, it's about time. Come up here. Where have you been? Don't you remember, Andrea? We talked about this last Sunday. Come on, get with the program. I should have known. Okay. And this is why I don't schedule you to speak. But anyway, back to what we were discussing. Rosie, are you okay? Somebody's hot rolling on the back. She's losing air. It is what it is. We're we're spiritualists, okay? So you know and I know you're not alone. So I drive down the street, I have whole conversations, whole conversations out loud. Do you really think I care what this person in the car next to me? No, I don't care. I don't look at them when they're picking their nose, they think they're invisible. So if I'm having a conversation with my mother, who's been dead like, 20-something years, that's my business, So it is what it is. But hey, if you want to have a conversation, even in your mind, they're going to hear you. They're going to hear you. They're going to hear your words, your sentiment, your emotions, your thoughts. So why not say it out loud? Sometimes it's easier. Because you're just driving along mindlessly, avoiding collisions, and having conversations with dead people. So if people, they pull up next to you and you're like discussing something like, look at over here, talking to somebody, there's nobody they can see. I'm talking to somebody, believe me, they'll be like, are you talking to yourself? I've had people say it. I go, no. No, I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to three people you can't even see. And that is the God's honest truth. It happens in my house all the time. But I notice that when I'm having these conversations with people in my house, my cats see them. They know somebody's there because I'm talking to somebody and they're like looking over there. So they know they're there, so I know it's not my imagination. If the cats can see them, and the dog, whatever. Because I said I had the dogs too, so everybody, it's like an open door. Everybody's in and out all the time, because people laugh and because when I do readings and I'll say, there's a dog here, like circling around, sit down next to you like they do, scratching out a spot. Well, that's your dog, or it was your mother's dog. It's somebody's dog connected to you. But sometimes dogs in spirit, they just come along and they think you need a friend. And they plop down next to you and they're your friend that day. They're listening to you. They're trying to console you. Animals are very blessed souls, and they do have souls. They do transition and they stay with us. I've had readings myself even where somebody said, oh, there's a dog, and she's not leaving. And I go, well, I hope not, because I call her every day, like, come on, and she's right there. I see her, I feel her, I sense her. So what kind of, person turns their back on a soul that transitions? Especially a loving, caring soul, that loves you unconditionally and still does. So have your conversations. Don't worry about what the person in the car next to you. I mean, I know it does sound crazy, but I even do it in stores. But there are a lot of crazy people walking around that are having a conversation, and I just go, well, maybe there is somebody. Let me look. Oh yeah, you're right. There is somebody. That's who you're talking to, So maybe we can see it, but other people don't. But yeah, if I'm in the store, Publix, Aldi's, wherever I am, I'm usually talking, going down the aisles, like looking for something, and they'll be like, can we help you find something? Like they think, oh, this crazy old lady, just give her something and she'll go away. We'll help her and she'll leave so she doesn't embarrass us or something. But no, it's all good. It's all out of love, and we know that. Anytime you feel that sense of love and blessings from the other side, isn't that like a special kind of feeling? The first couple of times I had experienced physical phenomena, even before I joined this church, because I was always like this, I always saw dead people, especially at wakes and funerals and stuff. I saw what they were wearing, as opposed to what was in the casket. But anyway, yeah, we all have these beautiful moments where you experience something, and sometimes it's only one time your whole life where something will happen to you that there is no physical or scientific explanation for. I lived alone after my husband died, well, with my dogs. And I do remember being I could stand in my kitchen and see all the way to the back door, to the French doors going out to the patio. And I was in the kitchen doing something, but I was standing there, you know, thinking something or doing something. And I was looking in that direction. Well, I think it was a chair back by the back door, and I had one of those old-fashioned porcelain, what they call them, Gibson girls, the dolls, the porcelain dolls. And she was sitting in the chair back there, and I was looking in that direction. And all of a sudden, I saw that doll jump onto the floor and just sit there. And I just was like, wow. Like, I wasn't scared. Like some people would have been screaming, running out of the house. But I was like, wow, you did that? How did you do that? Like, it was amazing to me. I went back there, you know, there was no windows open, no air, not that it would pull a doll out of a chair and throw it on the floor in front of me. And it was just amazing to me to actually witness something, you know, with your own eyes, like they say, not just hearing about it. And I was just amazed, because I knew it was my husband showing me, hey, I'm here, I did this. And wow, what an incredible feeling that is. Not terror, you know, more like confirmation. Like, I just kept saying, wow, like, how did you do that? That was amazing. So if you've had any of those moments, you know, I always tell people, you know, feel free to share with us, or when you go back to lunch or whatever, because those are the moments as spiritualists that we see something with our own eyes, not just somebody told you this or that. But I found over the years that if I was open and not fearful, because spirit does not want to scare you. And I've had that with people too. They'll say, I don't want to see anything. I'd probably have a heart attack. And believe me, when you're in that moment and it happens, there's no fear. It's more like, wow, wow, how did you do that? Like, do it again. You know, almost like, it's amazing. So we are so blessed to be able to experience just things like that. Things we see, we sense, we feel. I'm sure I think probably everybody in this room, I would be very surprised if you all did not have at least one incident in your life. And I don't mean the scary, spooky stories. You went to camp and sat around the campfire in the dark and told spooky stories, you know. We all did that, I think, you know, as kids or teenagers, try to scare each other or whatever kind of things. But I think probably everybody in this room has probably experienced at least one incident. If not, call Emilio, go over his house some night and you'll see all kinds of things. You know? But you're just amazed. I mean, it's not fearful, it's not scary. It's like, wow, confirmation of our beliefs. And not everybody can say that. Not everybody can say that. I was Catholic for 50 years. Okay, and I did everything, believe me, anything Catholic, I did it. Lay Eucharistic minister, you know, reader, I mean, I did everything. I worked at the Catholic Center, you know, I did everything you can imagine. And I sensed and I felt the presence of God. You know, and that is what guided me to make the decisions I did. I always felt that warm, loving sense of God close to me. But I never saw anything in a Catholic church. I never experienced anything, physical phenomena in a Catholic church. But once I gave that up and opened myself truly to being a spiritualist, those were the things I asked, because Spirit told me they don't go to most people because most people are afraid. And I don't mean they're afraid of the afterlife. They're physically afraid of seeing somebody that they know is dead in their house at night. I've heard stories, people say, oh, I woke up and so-and-so was at the foot of my bed and I just pulled the covers over my eyes. Go away, go away. That's my sister, by the way. And she's witnessed things. And I say to her, what more do you need? Like, what is it that you need? You're telling them not to come, but yet when you sense that they're there and you know they're there and you get the perfume smell from our mother, what more do you need? Come on, work with us here. It's all good. So that's why I'm saying we as spiritualists, we are so blessed because we're open to experiencing more than what the average person attending a Sunday service. They come to church, they say their prayers, they sing the songs, and then they walk out the door like, okay, check that off on my list. I went to church. I'm good. They covered all their bases. They don't stay and hang out and want to sit in circles or meditation groups. So, saying this, we have had requests in our suggestion box, which I brought up at the board meeting last Sunday, that more people would like to sit in meditation circles. And we used to do this every third Sunday of the month. So I'm going to tell you that unfortunately, this is not like an open invitation. I've been getting this from people that have been meditating and sitting in circles for years. So they're looking for a little bit more, okay? So they're not like in the beginning stages of spiritualism. They're further down the line. They've taken the classes and now they want to, I guess, practice or implement their skills that they've learned along the way. So we're always trying to teach. We're always trying to spread spiritualism, because most of us here can attest to the true validation of a religion like spiritualism. We've lived it, we've walked it, we've become better for it over the years. We've learned so much, we've advanced spiritually, so that we are open to what Spirit tells me in service to others. So I'm not just here for me, or you, or you, or you. I'm here for all of us, all of us to come together this weekly opportunity, and sometimes during the week we have healing service. See, how many churches do do a healing service? And the doors open at 6:30. Bring a friend, and they do donations as well. But it's all good. We're here to experience and show our experience. So I'm gonna cut this off before the camera does.